I usually split my mark stitches as I finish marking each piece. On the back pieces, mark stitch up the vent and mark stitch the top of the vent, plus mark the hem. You'll do best to mark them so that the stitches are at least a centimetre from any seams, so that they don't get caught. Mark the balance points on the side seam and mark along the armhole and neckline. I also emphasize the back pitch, again, being the point that the back armhole where we ended the inlay, the mark midway through the back armhole. It will be important much later when we sew in the sleeve. Baste the two backs together along the centre back line from the top of the vent to the neckline. Just next to the chalk line, which we are going to machine together later. On the forepart, mark stitch the top of the lapel and down the front edge and the hem. Start exactly on the corner so that it's perfectly translated when we also put in the neckline. Mark more densely around the curve. One on the breakpoint and then one for the buttonholes / placements as well, but we would largely only need the one on the waist. We'd find the others later. A couple of marks down the neckline as well. Mark the neckline starting and ending exactly on the corners, resulting in two marks meeting each other. Work around the front armhole, the inlay. Again, to emphasize the pitch on the lower front curve of the armhole. Moving on to the side seam, following which its balance points. Again, you can get away with one on each point a little further than 1 centimeter from the aforementioned side seam. I put a mark stitch on each of the button points of the darts because I don't want to have to take them all out later. I need the top and bottom and width on the waist. Similar can be said for the pockets. I want to know where the front and back of the pocket is, and that's all we need. We don't need to mark the breast pocket for the obvious reason though. Mark up the inlay of the cuff and along the cuff. Also, it can be useful to mark stitch the top of the vent in the sleeve. On the undersleeve, we're marking all of the chalk here. Again, it's useful to mark the top of the vent. Firstly, for all our convenience, I'm marking on all the pertinent information so that it is visible this time. Now, in the cut we made on the shoulder of the body canvas, we will open it to create, I think the technical term is a puff. We'll use a bit of the canvas we trimmed off to open up the puff, or dart if you prefer. We could also use silicea or mostly anything. We could open the dart with the opener that we're using cut on the bias rather than a straight, like I have it. Stick them together with a pin, staggered so that they sit more neatly together. Open the cut by about 1 centimeter and pin the other side in place as well. Be absolutely sure that they are mirror images, not identical pieces, otherwise it would still work out, it would just be a little bit strange. Machine the darts with a 0.5 centimeter seam allowance and trim off most of the excess. On the body canvas, with the canvas holding the dart open side up, lay the chest canvas on there 1 centimeter over the break line. Yes, over the break line. Lay the domette on top of the chest canvas as we cut it, evenly overbearing the canvas. Chalk a horizontal line across the middle of the domette around the middle of the armhole perpendicular to the grain. Mark 1 centimeter behind the break line on the domette. We can also chalk 2.5 centimeters in from the perimeter of the chest canvas so that we don't unnecessarily pad beyond it. Baste all of the pieces together with large basting stitches just to hold them together as we pad stitch them. Though while doing this I want to open the puff on the chest canvas that was also cut in order to match the body canvas underneath it. From the middle line, we'll start padding, with the pad stitch that was in my first stitches video. Use basting thread, start on the horizontal line, and decide which side you'll stitch first. I'm going to the shoulder, so stitch with the needle, stitching in the direction of the shoulder. Just stitch along the flat line with 2 or 2.5 centimeters between each stitch. Start at the break line you drew on the domette and sew towards the armhole. Stop shy 2.5 centimeters from the armhole though. Then fold the canvas over your hand and begin to shape it. You could chalk on the border of the domette 2.5 centimeters all the way around, or where the chest canvas ends, so that you can get right up to the end. Make sure your finger is where you're stitching so that you can keep it slightly taut and that you don't get any bumps on the body canvas. Keep going back and forth on the chest. If you remember when I first showed the pad stitch, you should take as little as possible from the backside of the fabric. That doesn't apply as much here on account of it not being shown. Just take as little of the body canvas as you can without spending too much time on it. Importantly, every 5 or 6 stitches, double stitch to keep all your efforts secure. So you could keep count and double stitch over yourself every 5 stitches, or do what I do and put one in every time I realize I've gone too far without one. You'll run out of thread a few times, so just secure the end, secure the next stitch, and keep going. Get to the top of the chest canvas, so that should be about 2.5 centimeters from the top of the domette. The theory of padding is that there will be less body canvas between each stitch than there is chest canvas, because it is folded over with the body canvas on the inside. It should be a given that each stitch is smaller as well, because it should almost be stretched over our finger, and the needle needs to only just pass through the body canvas next to our finger. Furthermore, you can decrease the size of the pad stitches as much as you like, though right now this is about the upper limit for being worth padding at all, size-wise. As you get smaller, the canvases will be held more securely and the shape that you create along with it. This creates a stiffer body of the jacket. Whether that's what you want is its own debate, though I feel compelled to add anyone who says that it's better, that's just their personal preference. Increased hand stitching won't improve a garment by default, which is a lesson it's taken, I guess, about 2 years for me to learn. Over time, the basting that you put in to keep the 3 stitches together originally will tighten and you can remove it. I decided to record the whole thing, so there should be an unlisted video linked in the description. Having gotten to your climax and finished on the top half of your chest, go again from the middle. Fold the canvas over your hand and start again from the break line, moving the needle towards the bottom. It's literally the same down to the bottom, to 1/4 decimeter from the edge of the domette. With both sides of the padding done, trim the domette 1 centimeter beyond the chest canvas along the bottom, and slip stitch the bottom of the domette to the body canvas. That said, make sure you know where the dart is and secure the thread either side of it. Remark the dart line with the tip and the waist. Mark 1.5 centimeters either side of the dart line on the waist. This will be our dart for the canvas. Join the points up to the tip. Cut through the waistline to the far side of the dart, cutting our chalk lines, cutting through the canvas and domette. We're going to use 1 or 2 pieces of either silicea or lining to close the dart. Put your first piece of lining over the dart on the domette side and sew them together with a 1/2 centimeter seam allowance. Turning around about 1 centimeter beyond the top, move the other side of the dart to the first that we just machined. We have to make sure that they'll sit together properly, so hold them together tightly, almost to the point of overlapping, since they'll pull away from each other a little bit when we're done. Having put both sides together, we can put another piece on the other side. We would follow the machining of the original, but we don't always need to secure the second side. Only when the shell of the cloth is particularly thin or light to cover the cut on the outside. Then, regardless of whether you used a second piece or not, from the bottom of the dart, machine straight up the center of the dart. From the top, we'll zigzag back down. Always from the top, because we don't want to push the domette or chest canvas upwards, and there's a risk of that if we start from the bottom. With my domestic machine, there's a function for that, but with commercial machines, we do literally need to make the zigzag manually, turning every couple of centimeters of stitching. Trim away all of the lining that you can. The lining may fold over itself and get stitched down. It's not a big deal, but try to avoid it. Now we'll just iron it, shaping the chest. Keep it domette side up, and hold one side of the dart. Use steam and maybe some spray as well to press it down. As we're ironing each side, we'd like to shrink the armhole and the break line. Holding up the other side, start about the middle and pull the iron around and towards the armhole and or the break line. This will just shrink it very slightly, allowing it to fit more closely around our arm and chest. We'd need to do this more thoroughly the more prominent the individual's chest. Hold it up, and we want it to naturally curve with the plain body canvas side on the outside. Beyond this point, we either need to leave the canvas folded gently along the middle over the edge of a table, or put it over a hanger such that it's bent over the body canvas only. In all cases, leaving the padding we worked so hard on to hang freely.